Welcome in, everybody. This is the second episode of EOPcast. Really special episode today because I have a great guest with me, LD Larkins, who is our transfer Sankofa Scholars counselor. He's also former CSUEB alumni and EOP alumni, and he's going to be talking to us about his journey. How you doing, LD?
Hey, Will. Glad to be here. I'm just ready to get going.
All right. So yeah, talk a little bit. What was your journey as an EOP student to now being a Sankofa counselor?
All right, so let me start from way the beginning. Why I chose East Bay? Why did I choose EOP? So actually, why I chose East Bay has a lot to do with EOP because when I was applying for different colleges, Dominguez Hills, Chico State, East Bay, and a couple of others, East Bay got back to me the quickest. Not only that, but their EOP department got back to me the quickest. And one of the biggest deciding factors in my admissions was the EOP grant. Which,
okay.
On the quarter system, that was, pretty much $1,000. So
yeah.
That's an extra $1,000 in my pocket. I'm gonna need that, So going there and then coming to East Bay from SoCal, just EOP helped me kind of get acquainted with a lot of students and get acquainted with East Bay because the East Bay welcome that fall 2012.
Wow.
When the row was supposed to end 2012.
Yeah.
I was an incoming freshman there, and I met so many great EOP peoples. A lot of people that I still talk to today. I actually met the EOP director there, the EOP director now, Antonio. He was actually my mentor.
Right.
Crazy enough. DP, oh man, I just remember she gave this financial aid workshop and she was raw. She was real. She was raw. She was saying, if you're going to be on campus and have financial aid, you're not going to have a whole bunch of extra money. She wasn't lying, man. She was not lying. After, after the disbursement and paying all the bills from housing and all that stuff, I had a little bit of change, but it definitely wasn't, enough to go, buy a new car or something like that.
Right.
So from there on out, I was an EOP student. I loved it. I loved the camaraderie. I loved the events. I had two awesome, amazing counselors. One being Jose Saceda. He's actually in merit now. He's, I think, leading.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah, I think he's leading some of the counseling over there.
Yeah, so I think he's still the Puente director.
Right, yeah, the Puente
coordinator.
Director. Yeah, which is big. That is big. Puente's big, similar to Ganas here. So he's doing his thing over there. Also, another counselor that I had in EOP, his name was Ishman Anderson.
Okay.
Man, great dude at the time. He was 25, 26 years old, so he was a young black man, He got his master's from UC Davis. And I was like, wow, man, I want to be like that. Like, that's the guy that I want to emulate. Came in as a criminal justice major, minoring in sociology. Didn't really know what exactly I wanted to do.
Yeah.
I just knew I wanted to help people. That was just my main goal. And he kind of brought up the idea of, hey, why don't you be a counselor? I was a peer mentor. This was maybe my junior year, I want to say, when, just looking at the climate, criminal justice wasn't going to be it. There was, there was Michael Brown, there was Trayvon Martin. Mm-hmm. There was a lot of, young black men being killed in the streets with no retribution whatsoever. Sometimes by the police, sometimes by
It's okay.
Sometimes even by citizens. So I was like, man, I don't know if criminal justice is where I want to make my mark, where I want to kind of change. So he kind of brought up the idea, hey, why don't you be a counselor? You're an EOP peer mentor. I loved being a peer mentor, mentoring a lot of the students coming in. Just being that bridge that I didn't necessarily have. Well, I had Antonio as my mentor,
Yep.
of course. But there was little things here and there that I didn't have as a student that I was like, you know what, I'm gonna be that for other students. So I would always help people choose their classes. I would always give recommendations about how to move, how to talk to professors, go to your counselor, where to go to get a counselor if you're not an EOP student. Because back then in 2012 it was ACE. If you weren't an EOP, Sankofa wasn't a thing yet. It was pretty much EOP and Ganas, I believe, were like the only two programs.
Oh, okay.
And Excel. Sorry. EOP, Excel, and Ganas were the three support programs that we had. Other than that, it was ACE. So it was, at that time, it was probably a population of 15,000 students. So, and maybe 12 ACE counselors at the max. Sometimes there's 8, there's turnover. So sometimes there was 8 counselors at the time. So it was really hard to get in touch with a counselor. And in some ways I was kind of making up that for my friends, So when they're asking, what classes do I have to choose? I kind of knew because I had a mentor. Also, on top of that, I had a really good head on my shoulders myself. So that was just something I really enjoyed. I really enjoyed helping my fellow students. And, I was being recognized for it, by the EOP staff. And they're like, hey, man, you would make a really good counselor one day. So that kind of got the ball rolling a little bit. But I wasn't able to just, go from EOP peer mentor to EOP counselor. I would have loved it. I would have loved that. That would have been great. But that's just not how things work. So I thought about going to grad school. I wanted to go to San Diego State. But I was like, I don't have a car. I don't have any money. I know nobody in San Diego. I don't know if it's just the right time to do this now. So I decided to stay and use my connections that I made as a peer mentor, as a student worker, and everything to kind of transition into a staff position at Cal State East Bay. I was a university operator for about, I want to say, 2.5 years. Mm-hmm. And what that kind of entailed was I was the main operator for the university, so I would transfer people here, transfer people there. Now, what that kind of helped me with was getting familiar with the campus, getting familiar with the different players in the different campus, being able to kind of disseminate good information to students. Because if I didn't get it right, they were definitely going to call back, say, hey, yo, that was not it. And I'd be like, okay, sorry, let me let me get it right for you. So after about 2.5 years, I pretty much got all I can get from that position. And then I transitioned to being an office manager. So I was an office manager for about another 2.5 years. I was office manager. Now, that job was, I was the answer person. I had to find the answer. I was the fixer. I was the organizer. You just became the point person when you are an office manager.
You were the point guard then.
Exactly. I was the point guard and everything. So once again, what entailed that job was building the classes, adding students into the classes, professor contracts, kind of acting as a liaison between professor and student relationships, because not all the time do professors know how to communicate with students, and do students know how to communicate with professors. So a lot of times I was the middleman to kind of bridge that gap. And in that's when I actually started to do a lot of advising. I started to do major checks. I was meeting with students. I was kind of going back to what I was doing when I was a peer mentor. And I was like, man, this feels good. This feels really good. Doing this again. So I thought, man, you know what? Let's take this to the next step. So there was an opportunity that presented itself. It was a counselor position at EOP. I applied for it. Unfortunately, I didn't get it the first time, which is, totally fine. But to be honest, I was a little discouraged. At the time, I was really wanting to make that kind of career change because I started to see myself start to get stagnant in that position. And I saw those around me, how they've been stagnant for years. And I mean 5 years, 10 years, 12 years, 20 years. And these are people that have masters, but they're still stagnant because they got comfortable, and they feel like, man, I can do more, but they got comfortable. And I didn't want to fall into that. So went outside of my comfort zone, applied for that job. I didn't get it. I already knew it would kind of be far-fetched if I got it. But, you never know. You miss all the shots you don't take, right?
That's right. Yep.
So that didn't work out the first time. I was a little depressed, a little down about it, I'm not going to lie. But another opportunity presented itself. It was a lower position, but it was a position where I could move in and nobody would say nothing about it. So I applied for this lower position. It was still an advising position, and I got it. And I was part of the COPA cohort for about, I want to say, 8 or 9 months before the Sankofa transfer counselor actually got promoted to be a coordinator of the BSU Center. So that was kind of just a natural fit for me to go kind of continuing that counselor track and taking all of the stuff I've learned from being the university operator, from being an office manager, and from being a trainee in EOP. And today that serves me incredibly well. I'm able to kind of build this great relationship with students. I have all these different connections from all these different people because I was a university operator. I was the point man as an office manager. And when you're the point man as an office manager, you get to know a lot of people because you have to fix problems that you didn't even know were problems.
Right.
So I was just able to bring all that information here, and it is honestly serving me really well.
Yeah, I really love you were already learning to be a counselor as a student, right? You like you said, right. I was already helping my classmates pick out their classes, and then you talked about being kind of a liaison and kind of being that middleman, when you were already working here as a staff member, and whether it be as an operator and your other roles, and maybe, I don't know if at the time you realized how much that really was what it is to be a counselor, is kind of that middleman where, like you said, maybe the teachers don't know how to communicate with the students and vice versa, but the counselor is the one that the students go to.
Exactly.
And then the teachers and the counselors have to be able to communicate and make sure that the students are doing well. So I don't know if you knew it at the time, but you were definitely already honing those skills.
Right.
So I really like that you brought that up. And I think it's great. And we had some peer mentors here last time in our first episode. And they talked about their journey and how they didn't see themselves even in college, and how EOP and this opportunity kind of allowed them to see, and then maybe they had a counselor or a teacher. Did you have anybody outside of your peer mentors that you remember in your undergrad or in high school that you knew, okay, this is the person that's motivating me either to be a counselor or to help people or made an impact on you?
Yes. Okay, so let's go a little bit further back. Let's go back to high school now.
I like that. Let's take it back.
Let's take it back. Okay, so let's go back to high school. Obama's president, and it's
okay. Yep.
So
I remember those days.
I was an Avid, and before I got into Avid, I was just kind of A good student. I was a good student, had like A's and B's. So I had a high school counselor who was like, you know what? Let's hone some of these skills. It's like she saw that raw potential in me as like a prospect. Like, man, this guy has raw potential. If he's coached up, if he gets this, he can be an all-star. You know,
right.
He can be a superstar. So I kind of saw that. I didn't really see that. I was just, focusing on school, getting the best grades I can. I mean, I didn't even know the difference between USC and Westwood College.
Wow.
I didn't know the difference between a trade school and USC. I thought it was all the same. You just applied and maybe you got in, maybe you didn't. I don't know. So with those grades, my counselor was like, man, you need to be an AVID. And I was like, oh, well, what's AVID? And then she kind of described it as a program to help, kind of the B students, the students maybe come from low income areas, maybe the students that don't really know as much or don't have as much help when dealing with college, when dealing with applications, when dealing with the information and all of that stuff. So I would say she was kind of one, and then when I got into AVID, my AVID teacher was another person who was like, man, you can really do good things. I learned how to write really well in AVID. Of course, English helped too, but in AVID, we were writing essays, we were writing personal statements, we were doing college trips. I went to San Bernardino State, I went to USC, I went to Cal State LA, Cal State Long Beach, San Diego State. All of these are places that, honestly, I've never been to.
Yeah.
Maybe I drove by them when I was little, but I've never been to many of these colleges. I haven't been to any of these colleges before. The first college campus I stepped foot on was when I went on that college trip. Definitely all of that, I went to all these colleges. I'm like, wow, I want to be here. And then as high school went on and AVID went on, I started to not only say I want to be here, I belong here. I deserve to go to college. I belong in college. It was no longer this kind of pipe dream. It was an actual goal that was there. I just had to do what I had to do, continue doing what I was doing, and I would get there. So I would say somebody that kind of sparked that would probably be my high school counselor. And on top of that, my AVID teacher just giving me the tools to actually go out and find myself,
Yeah. No, AVID's a great program. My sister was an AVID. And so, no, I don't know if it was around when maybe it was just starting out when I was like basically graduating high school. I graduated in 2005. And, but I definitely would have wanted to be in it because, again, first gen, you don't know anything. You need to hone those skills, like you said, they're like, oh, write a personal statement. You're like, what how? What is it? Yeah, what is it, number one, and then how? How do I even start? Like, what do I put in it? They probably tell you a little bit about, like, here's a basic resume, how it looks, and so just starting that ball rolling of, like, there's something beyond this, beyond high school. There's another world that we need to prepare you for. And, your classes don't, right? Like, your regular academic classes don't prepare you for it. So you really need to have a training in it. So I'm glad that you brought that up. Yeah, it's a great program. Okay, cool. Yeah, and I'm glad that you also said that there were people there that you were just like, okay, I looked up to this person, like the way that you looked up to your peer mentors and stuff like that when you got here.
Exactly.
Right on.
And then another thing to kind of add on to all of that was another reason why I'm so happy to be a counselor now. Is those behind me, those people I talked about, they helped me because unfortunately at home there was nobody there. I'm first gen, as you probably know. When you're first gen, you can't go to your parents and say, hey, I need this. They're gonna look at you.
They weren't there. They were at work.
Yeah, exactly. So all of this stuff, me not knowing USC versus Westwood College, all that stuff was, there's still students out there. Even with all the information now that they still don't know. They don't know their potential. No one has seen their raw potential and been like, hey, you can be an all-star. You can be whatever you want to be. And that's just not hyperbole. I'm not just, saying this just to say this. No. Here are the necessary steps you can take to meet this goal. And when you do that, it becomes tangible. It becomes real.
Yeah.
It's no longer, I want to be a rich auntie. It's, hey, you're going to get a degree in finance. And then you're going to get an internship to work for Robert Half. And then once you work for Robert Half, you're going to move up the ranks. And then once you move up the ranks, you're going to be making $300,000. Once you make $300,000, you can then invest that money to make more money. Mm-hmm. That's how you become the rich auntie.
Yeah. No, exactly. But it's so hard when you're young and you don't really know and you haven't had that experience, or your family hasn't had the experience. You don't even know what you don't know.
Exactly.
You don't know these things are possibilities. And so it sometimes does take a peer mentor or a counselor to kind of pass that knowledge on. And that's why I do think being a first-gen student and now first-gen student graduate that's a counselor is extremely beneficial, just because it does somewhat give us an advantage, because we kind of have this kind of mentality of like, it's us against the world, and we have to scrap for everything that we have, because that's how it was.
Exactly.
Like, and so that's kind of how we try to counsel our students. So I'm really glad that you shared, and I'll just kind of end with this, because I don't want to keep you too long, but I really love talking. I know we could do this for 2 hours. But do you feel as though now things changing so much in the landscape of things, that it's a little bit tougher to kind of reach students, or that students have maybe so many resources that it's more about just making sure that they understand like where to find them?
That's a really, really good question. And this is a very important question, because as men of color, we are not doing great in the college landscape right now.
Right.
We're not going to college. We're not graduating from college nearly as high as, our women are. And that's great that our women are killing it. Happy for them. But at the same time, why is it that our black and brown men aren't going to college? Why is it that with all of this Instagram, even back in 2012, Instagram wasn't really that big for me.
Yeah.
And now you can go on a college tour on Instagram. We couldn't do that. We couldn't do that, Will.
That's true.
There wasn't.
You're right.
There was, I want to say like a couple of years ago, I just turned on the TV and there was a literal college tour channel.
Wow.
Where there was a channel that they just literally showed all these different colleges. I'm like, wow, all this stuff is here, but yet the enrollment is down. Where is that disconnect?
Right.
I know you asked me a question, but now I'm
okay.
posing questions to our audience. Where is that disconnect? And I'm trying to. It's hard to identify. There's a lot of different variables, of course. There's the pandemic that happened. There are still social norms out there where, it's men that want to kind of go into trades,
Right.
There still is this stigma about men and the heal professions, nursing, counseling, social work, all of that, where men lag way, way behind. Even when you look at, I know EOP, there's a lot of male counselors, but even when you look at the East Bay as a whole, there's not many male counselors. And black male counselors, there's 2.
Yeah.
Me and Zach. Maybe there might be another one somewhere, but I'm not too sure. Maybe Mark Strong over in Outreach, but there's really not that much representation for us. And I just think, what are some ways that I can help that, which I'm really glad that I'm in the position I am, being in Sankofa transfer counselor. I can go to these events. I can go to, Transfer Day. I can go to Pioneer Day. I can go to Welcome Day. I can go to these college fairs and show them, hey, there's a young black male here that is a counselor. I'm a professional, I'm doing something that maybe you never even thought you could do. Just like my counselor back when, Ish, he was a young black man. He was 26 and he was a counselor. So I was already looking up. So basically, I want to be that for our young black and brown men, kind of like you, kind of like Antonio.
Yeah.
Just being men of color in these hill professions and showing that, hey, we can be here. We don't have to just be our manual labor. We're not just our bodies.
Right.
We're also our hearts. We're also our minds. We're our souls, We're not just our bodies.
Yeah. That's a great point. I didn't think of how much that emphasis and that stigma is there still, but I agree with you. The more I talk to students, especially our male students, it's still really alive and strong, and in a way that I wouldn't expect, or you wouldn't expect in 2023. Mm-hmm. But I think it's because and it may change, because this generation is seeing more men work as healers, like you said. And so when they have kids, they'll have a different mentality of what that looks like. But their parents are still a part of the generation that hasn't seen it, right? And is not accustomed to seeing too many males in a healing profession. So that's a really great point. I never thought of it that way.
Right, exactly. And that's why, I do the men of color group that I did to kind of
talk it up. That's why we're on.
I know, right? So yeah, I did a 5-week men of color group. Each week we kind of tackled a different topic, but no matter what the topic was, my main goal or my aim was to just allow a space for men to just say whatever you want to say. Nobody's gonna judge you. Yeah. Nobody's gonna say what you said was wrong, what you said was this, what you said was that. Just tell me how you feel, and then let's dissect that. Let's unpack that. Why do you feel this way? Why do you not feel that way? And
that might be the first time in their lives that these students were able to actually express that and have a space to do it. Right? Like, I don't think, growing up, I never had that space in a Latin American family. It's like, hey, here, talk about your feelings, and we're just going to dissect it in a totally judgment-free space. Yeah. Right. That didn't happen.
No, exactly.
Awesome.
Yeah, and just the main goal was to just get into the minds of, these 21-year-old men, because they're going to be our next step. They're going to be that next step, Yeah. I mean, I'm a young man myself. I'm 29. But I realized when I was 21, I thought I had stuff together. I didn't know what I didn't have together. I didn't know. And I'm not talking about bill-wise. I'm talking about emotionally. I'm talking about relationship-wise, perspective-wise. Even though I felt like I had a good head on my shoulders, the way I think now is vastly different than when I was 21. And I'm sure when I'm 35, 36, 40, it's going to continue to evolve. Yeah. So basically just getting there and seeing where these young men's head are at. And, are you depressed? Why are you depressed? Do you feel heard? Why do you not feel heard? And, a lot of our young men say they don't really feel heard sometimes. And it sucks because a lot of times we kind of get hung up on this, men have ruled. And then that kind of stifles the younger men who are coming in a society that's way different than their fathers.
Yeah.
They didn't work in a farm. They didn't have to start working at 17. They don't know how to fix cars. They don't know how to build house. They played video games,
Yeah.
I remember there was a stigma about that. Playing video games was nerdy. It was seen as soft, My man builds houses while your man plays video games. There's still those social norms that are out there that are negatively affecting men. And we just, have to continue to do better. That's just really what it is. We just have to all continue to do better, continue to have these conversations, and be open-minded, whether you're man, woman, or, whatever you identify as.
Correct. Yeah, no, absolutely. And having spaces that allows for that conversation to be a place. Like, that's how we get there, is continuing to build these spaces. So I love that you've opened up this space, in your position now that you have, and
Right.
and you have more ability and say and control to be able to say, okay, I want to create more workshops. I want to create more of this conversation so that it continues, and that, again, like you said, all we're doing is we're passing the torch on to the students, and they have to keep carrying it, though.
Yeah, exactly.
So, well, with that, I just want to say thank you so much. Like I said, we could keep going, but I definitely want to be mindful and respectful of time and schedules. And this was so much fun, and I hope you come back and we do another one of these.
Oh
'cause
yeah, man.
this was good.
It was great. Hopefully we can come back. Maybe we can get some students, maybe a couple of students from the Men of Color group. We'll see what happens.
Please bring the students, because as we've said from the start, and I told the students last time when we did the first episode, this is not about us necessarily, although we'll share our points just like we did today. But this is about their voice and them helping us build content and being able to share it with students and their families, because I really want everyone to hear the students' voices and them being the central figure. So yeah, please bring the students, bring the Men of Color, and we will talk a lot more about all this, the students' journeys, and how they feel, and then what it's like to be a Sankofa student, not just EOP student. Again, EOP is part of a much bigger, broader program. And so thank you so much. We really appreciate you joining us today, LD. And for that, thank you so much for being with us on EOPcast. Take care, everybody.
All right.